Welcome to the Giants Nation Show. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, presented by you, the people. Man, we have Nick Falato on this episode. I keep on saying we, but you know what? We, as Giants Nation Show, we are a family. We got Nick Falato on going through five mid-round draft prospects. We talked about a little bit of Shedeur Sanders in the beginning. This is something we do annually. It's actually usually the first episode, the last episode of March going into draft month, but obviously, things changed, and I wanted to do this on the Giants Nation show. So, really awesome, Falato, the Big Blue Banter podcast, just talking ball. It's a lot of fun. I am so thankful, man, for the support. Like, it's truly been overwhelming. I was sitting there Monday night before all this was announced, so nervous about how the next day is going to go, and I'm just unbelievably thankful for the support and all the outpouring. Also, I need to address this. A lot of you guys thought it was an April Fool's joke, which I don't know if it's I think we've been so conditioned to like, oh, everything's an April Fool's joke on April Fool's. But it is the first of the month, and sometimes announcements happens on the first of the month. But I'm like flattered that people thought I would reveal all that and have whatever happened with Justin all just like, hey, just joking. But I appreciate all the support. Um, and I do want to put a pin in the stuff with John Boy Media because John Boy he made a his podcast more and kind of said some things where disagreed with it a little bit. But here's what I'm gonna do. And I thought about doing this at the end of the episode because like I don't know if people are gonna want to hear this. But instead of like telling you guys how thankful I am, I'm gonna show you how thankful I am. Because what we usually do is we announce the new Patreons on on the show as an ad, for Patreon. Well, this is what I'm gonna do. Can't do all the funky names, but this is going to be my thank you to get you guys. I'm just going to show you how thankful I am. Thank you to Dean Rivera, Matthew Joint, Cade Johnston, Alex Saintil, um, Sam, just regular old Sam, Colorado G-Men, Jason Vargas, Sean Moore, Connor McManamy, Watson Graves, Taylor Hawk, uh, Zig Won't Die, Jason Adams, Patrick Chikaru, Marco Schaefer or Schaffer. Let's see, what do we got? I'm going through my emails. Brady Heslin. If you hate this, just skip through it. Michael Picarello. Like don't feel bad if you're skipping through this. Uh, Abhishek Singh, Rohan Castellino, Thomas Gargiulo, Victoria Cristiano, Ismanuel Diaz, Big S710, Alex Keller. I think that's my college football teammate who's just being a good friend. Thank you, Alex Keller. Jonathan Sheffield, Brian Matthew. This is going to go slow because it's like in between other emails. Justin Bezlitti. Hold on. Dead air, Bobby. Dead air. Going through a lot of people sent a message notifications. Jack Beatty, Marco Fernandez, Jack Salazzoni, Stacy Beth Glaze, Christopher Paduan. I'm going to read every single one. If you don't like it, fast forward. Dayton Emerson, Perry Gordon, KD 91197, Nick Marchionda, Doc Manning, Johnny Reardon. All right, next page. Again, I'm going through all the sent messages. Eventually, it'll go a little quicker. Let's see. Next page. Ryan Chauncey. Sorry. Joshua Glidden. Now I'm starting to feel bad for the listeners. You're like, what did I sign up for? Come on. CB. Tyler Everett. Jimmy Kearney. Lord Gooner 69420. I got a real strong feeling that's not your real name. Just Christine, Nicholas Shannon, Robert Vierny, Juan Yabara, Ryan Menzies, Danny Silbert, Stephen or Stefan, Meet Watchman, Ray, Nicholas Sandoval, Vincent Scholler, Ben Marzullo, Scott Savvy, Sam Barry, Matt Faring, Thad Sawyer, Mark Seamers, Matthew Ryan, Carlos Halante, Tim Johnson, 714 Joyce, Stefan Michelle, TH, Ryan Cassier, Jake Rosenbaum, Anthony Walsh, Rohan of Affleck, Justin Palumbo, Ruben Harushka, Dr. O, Danny Boy. Is that Danny Boy Hustlehard? Oh shit. Patrick D, Andrew Aronson, Brett M, Mike Abate, Don Decker, Aaron Galley, Jeff Bassman, Yami Hotspur, Josh Feeder, William Reich, The Mage, my guy, Jason Bright, Donnie Health, Gilbo, DG23, William Taylor, Cliffside, Adrian Davis, Tom J, Christopher Logrud, Rabbit Palm. Did I just say something? Anthony Peters, Evan Reichert, Colin Burke, Andrew Rinaldi, Jared Ruby, Daniel McLaren, D Lyon, Jeff Euliger. Boys, I'm telling you, we got a lot left. Kendall or Al Sabelli, Mark Martinez, Andre Romellard. You know what? Kendall Ettenbaum. If I say your name twice, fine. Kyle Dugan, Duggan, Kevin O'Neill, Cameron McMillan. Let's get it. Giga Mosher, Kendall Ettenbaum. There you go. Anthony Sicasio, Mark Donovan, Michael Kroll, Hugh Klein, Declan G, Andrew Yerger, Richard Subject, Dan Holtland, William Pachione, Evan Brady, Lucas Croft, Christopher Cardy, Matt Stanzione. Hey, that's Hoodie Glaber, my guy. Used to do work for us. Thank you. Dan Cavello, Sean Hansen, David Very, Issa J, Isaiah, not really Isaiah. On one Dino, Evan Brady, Durstein, Jack Artsy, Josh Siegler, Sean, JT Peace, Endo Buford 02, Beandon, uh, Hanlon Lowe, John Culkin, Damian Dolan, Jack Myers, Joey Alapro, Ryan Dennehy. Again, fast forward if you don't want to hear this. Randy Harold, Jack Rosweiler, James O'Brien. Is that John Boy? I don't think so. Alec Aarons, Zach Rome, Jorge Contreras, Connor Frisella, Joseph Panero, Mike Misk, Dan W., Reader Pete Hunt, New Jersey, Ryan Finkel, Sean C., Jason Adams, Ted A., Dan Seneca, Philip Swabinski, Eric, Matt in Florida, Kevin Steithenthal, Ryan Gianelli, Corey Jason, Dave Burke, Braden Hernandez, Quentin Carnduff, Eric Nihas, Timothy Lindsay, Chris Manarino, Matt Francis, Israel Muljo, Dan Wyman, Nick, Zach Ida, Ryan Schaefer. Huge thank yous to you. You know why. Eddie Watson, Sean Salvi, Rich Sino, Daddy Midnight. You know what? I usually want to say that. I'm going to say it. Thanks, Daddy Midnight. Brian Shiro, Matty Coco, Steve Haderer, Joe Tranfo, Tristan Dudek, Garrett Kalem, Tony Dieso, Joe Pinto. It says meet. John Gleason, former Giants fan of the year. Travis Osborne, Liam, Bailey Wild, Sal Camizzo, Brian Steinem, Angelo, Jack, CGF Sports, Bareth Satha, Michael Malilo, John F. Brophy Jr., Alec, Just underscore Dave, Josh Cooper, Paul Agrippo. An extra special thank you to you. You know damn well why. Mikey Tauber, Chris Goring, Kevin McLafferty. It's brisk, baby. Brian Kotwicki, Jeff Steer, Chris Sansevere, Ham Sandwich, Anthony P. Sam Sandwich. I'm religiously, I don't eat you. Emmanuel Baki, Mark Newtile, Michael McKenzie, Joe Lagrippo, Aaron Harrison, Hector, Carl Toner, Gula, Mitch Edentinson, GH, St. Atticus, Rob Bulldog, Anthony Sanchez, Jace N, Thomas Teixeira, Hunter Bowman, Dude, Ed, Ben. An extra special thank you to Ben. You know damn well why. Isaac, Bobby Trees, Michael Flandina, Josh Dolka, Philip Azzolini, Ryan Gel Shannon, Zoke Miyama, Jason Dodge, Giuliano, KC Funk, Matt, Kashim House, Matt again, Beansy, Newton Policastro, Paul Shuckett, Josh D'Souza, Stephen Panone, Jeffrey O'Donnell, Brian, Jake DJ, Yankee Mandela, Jorge, Joe Porzio, Steve, Alexander Pica, Stan McCune, Jeff Metzler, Peter or Piter, Mike, Dan Whale, Andrew Christopher, Jamie Busold, Nick H, John, Michael Stolte, Brian McCormick, Richard Jackson, NYG Best, Matthew Doughty, MCK 1127, Mick 127, whatever, 11. Matt Deutsch, Matt, you're not a douche. I'm sorry. Jonathan Pacheco, Kenny Johnson. That might be Isaiah Pacheco's family. He's a Rutgers guy. Sean Kennedy, Scott Devaney, uh, Resto 25, Mike Blue 8, Ryan R, Ashwin Saridan, Jim Karushi, Mike L, Gishgali. Hopefully I got that right. Jacob, Nino Braun, Nick C2, Console Wars. I love you guys. Kevin Campbell, JB, Darth Durango, Samuel Houston, UB1944, Austin Lindsay, Yao Sosa. I hope I got that right. I'm sorry. JJ Lane 25, Mark D, Lev or Leave, Jason Crownover, Mark Zula, Christopher Haskins, David Medina, RJ Reskigno, Toby Shacklock, Christopher Williams, Roy Viola, uh, Patty, Jedi Beefcake, Jacob Bell. Awards now, Media Some Clowns, Meet KT, Tim Zier, Philip Canopy, Grim Simaluka, Arthur Woolsey, Alex D, Michael Chorus, Tamuge, Ryan Flanagan, Josh Maynard, Dougie Fresh, Brian M424, Michael Doherty Jr., Orleans Darkwa. Is that the real Orleans Darkwa? Peter Cosma. That would really drive some people crazy. Trevor Thornberry, Rich underscore H23, FJ, Jake, Nathan Vecchiarelli, Jeff Chang, Tyler Riley, Mark, Daniel Smith Hamilton, Michael Colavito, Sean Borbely, Big Fella, Rob Dempsey, Meet Ryan J. I keep on saying the meat thing. Nathaniel McKinnon, Deb Ellis, Giants Craft, Dayton Emerson, Todd Mayer, Joshua Riley, EHJJ, Jonathan Frasco, Siraj Sinya, Christian Grund, Leo Silbert, Alex Casanova, Randy Corley, James Banbury, Daniel Niederhauser. Hope I got that right. Matt Joyce, Meet Adam, KH0, Mike Clark, Christian Robert Deich, Jamooj J, Jacob Kleinberg, Sekeren Enaporeti. I hope I got that right. I know I did in like a Spanish accent. I know that's not a Spanish name. Valerie Sims, Ryan Carissa Ceresa, Bradley Meekings. You know what? I'm reading names. Super Tarded Dog, Glenn Lombardi, Michael Mazzarona, Daniel Moratayo, Joy Conklin, Dave, Rebecca Wiskoski. Love you. Garv5918, Justin Post, Casey Darko, Ryan Mashazek, Hallmeyer, Jameson Renfro, Sean Cashman, Tim Butler, Stephen Patello, William McIntosh, Chris St. Clair, Josh Ettinger, Patrick Whalen, Jack, Maxwell Valderde, George Ramos, Tommy McNamara, Sean Sullivan, Tom Posilippo, Mark, Hardcore Rick, Anthony Litwin, Anthony Milanaze, Liam Heffernan, Roscoe, John Winson, Keen One, Kyle Sedano, Matt Messner, Tim Little, Gibran Dar, Cezal Shi, Frank Corona, Dan Farrell, Sima Singh, Nicholas Clemens, Matt, Brian Loizinski, Aaron Krieger. All things Giants, man. You've been an A1 from day one. Luis, Sam Nair. You know, you're an extra, we're all extra special. Stephen Michelle, Vil Haltunen, Liam Potter, William P. Marvin Jr., Jordan Layton, Andrew Spagnola, Matthew Du Bois, Jake Zeely, Jason, Gil Martinez, Dustin Ballack, AV, Pablo Francisco, Jacob Gruber, Marlon Yu, Alex Weiss, or Matt Vespa, Julian Rodriguez, Matt Witeska, Phil Safrandiende, Ben Pugh Morgan, Phil Baldoni, John Gravina, Michael Jacuto, Jared Zrati, Frazen Robinson, Alex Yepes, Seymour Plains, Ryan Flood, William Cargill, Nick, Ryan Flood again. He edited it. George Fabricatori, Michael Romanoff, Ryan Mainwall, Richard Hampson, Schnitzler, Brian Futterman, KD127, Noah Finkelstein, Aaron Ritchie, Gavin Casey, Micah Benson, John, Eric Parabo, Ryan Cardy, D Kit, uh, T Buttle, Breck, David Goodman, John Dice, Joey LaFaro, Herwy, Ryan H., Brian Carroll, Harry Weber, Daryl LaMonica, Big E 9690, Anthony Carvalli, John Douglas, Tickle Puppy Express, Ex Matriculator, Dominic Cardone, Jeff Mueller, Tyler Morris, Chris Averin, Justin Workstel, KSIXI. I lost my place. Where did I go? Where did I go? I lost my place. I lost my place. Maybe I don't know. Breck, David Goodman. Oh man, I hope I didn't mess that up. Tobias, man, I hope I didn't mess that up, man. Here, let me go back. Where's KSXI? Okay, Mike G, Justin Workstell, Drew, Mark, James London, David DeFeo, Mr. Glizzy, Ryan Urban, JC Cruzado, Milton A. Rosario, Patrick Soar, Ryan Johnson, Sam Coe, Rob T, Mike Lancaster, Tobias Kalanga, John Whiteman, Mike Wicks, Nancy and Robert, those are my parents. Thank you to my mom and dad. Yes, they have the same name as the stepbrothers' parents. Gerald Garcia, Hayden Lewis, Steven Schaefer, Kyle Janik, Donald Ramos, Jack Kushner, Yoran Marciano, Dave Jones, Hashib Hask, Matthew Demera, Victor Cordian, Glock Roach, Day One, Hank Wolf, Jim Lewis, Michael J. Bursish, Keegan Brown, Ryan, Zay, Eamon Coleman, Dates and Dead Guys, Gary, Chris B, Robert Melendez, Giovanni Ibarra, Abe Froman, Michael Carby, C41N, Nick Roche, T Money Too Cold, Anthony Bavelfish, John Vanelli. If you guys ever wanted me to slip up and say something I'm not by putting all the words together, you lost your opportunity. Research Rick Bowman, Nathan Outwire, Ocean, Ryan Nelson, Ryan Roberts, Connor Gaffney, Justin Owinski, Daniel Thompson, Renee Ariel Ruiz, Dylan Craig, Sean Smith, Matthew Brown, David Rindy, Taylor Morante, Matt Tripp, Hold My Hand. Did not asking, that's the name. Matt Reynolds, Gareth Lewis, Mr. Gazman, Jaden Meadows, Sam Moyle, Robert Cox, John Palmieri, Matt Garese, Chris, supporter of good things. I agree with you. Dr. Matheson, McConville, PT, DPT. I don't know what all those things mean. I know you're a doctor, though. Jackson Westfall, Mason McCaffrey, Alfie Greco, Word XXI, Michael, Louis Solomson, Rob S., Bobby K., Matt Roche, Peter Popovich, Dan Iorio, Peter Mueller, Kevin MC, Ariel Israel, Heston C., Tim Bacon, Relic, Joey Mack, Michael Malloy, Alexander Giakis, Michael Coyle, Ryan Lesher, Mike Girardi, Paul Mercure, Carlos from Philly, Gabriel Caldera, John W. Costello III, Garrett Gleason, Keith Shank, Nathan Bean, Luke Paquette, Chris Smith, NYG Giants for life. I agree. John Munoz, Benjamin Gold, Nathan Fioravante, Gary Thompson, Sean, Matt Gunter, Eugene Schenkman, Dylan, Alex Campbell. Can you get me some water, please? I'm asking my lovely wife because I'm dying here. Zach Sims, Daryl W., Joseph Clark, the headless horseman, Bobby, Max Shippey, RJ Mills 126, Matt Hall Monitor Lizard, Meet Fernando VH, Ryan O'Connor, Leonardo Fontes, say not on Woe 95, Greg Zoll, Marcus Lopez, Robert Guerrero, Justin Duber, Mushensa, Harry P, Giants Joss in Vancouver, Meet Ari, Raymond Palazzo, Big Blue 1026, Jonathan Osborne, shout out the Six Man Show, Orlando Magic, Scott Wiley, XRZ, Brian McDonough, Michael Ditizzi, Christopher Flanagan, Derrick Nelson, Kale Doran, Bobby Trivet, Sean Sims. I need water. Adam Osman, Hayde, Ronald Jackson, John Blois, Richard Haber, Zachary Mishriki, Abraham Levy, XRZ, Alex Settle, Nick Lasky, Brian Wisonowski, Alexander Davidson, Earthrise, Jordan P, Damani, Daryl Graves, John Shaw, The Shea Boys, John Chazen, Travis L, Akiva Hammond, Joe Yu, Aaron Mornihan, Chris Doyle, Mike D 1040, Frankie, Mike Carlson, Alex K, Richard, Doug Bernstein, Steven, John Ivers, John Muni, Joshua Blackwell, JK, Adam, Matthew Ring, Matt Gilroy, Kostas Giannoulis, Fictitious Cycle, William Weiss, Benjamin Skolzolja, Matt Isaac, Eric Olson, Saruj Rupanarji. You're paying in a currency I don't even know. What is CZK? CK, Taylor Holes, Jonathan Rung, Matt Agnew, Table, Brian's Camp, Isaling Fenlong, Paul Picagallo, Anthony Tombasco, KD, Chris Goodrich, Bryce Batson, Johnny DiNapoli, Luke Murray, Minar Khan, Sam Cromer, Rashad Mian, John Carando, Ty Italiano, Louis the Cat, maybe, Blair Thompson, Pete Geyer, Matthew Bernardo, Trey, Robert Vartanian, Rick Habib, John Alley, Kyle Begley, Michael Sullivan, Gabe Itch. Finally, someone got me. Mike, Daniel Stenberg, William Cook, Damian S., Tim Olenowski, Big Blue UK IRL. Shout out those guys. Ethan Gray, Connor, Scott Vosper, Tom G. Arsaguchi, Mustafa Kantar, Giancarlo Calisano, Harrison Lipsky. I think I got Ite High again. Mike Caden, Chris Cow, Glenn Glenn R. Grantner, Tristan Sykes, Brian Graziano, Star, Michael Griffin, Daniel Featherson, Josh Meza, Nico Risen, Parker Harmon, Jimmy Garcia, Simon Safferson, Philip Branster, Paul Rocha, Brandon Samples, Felipe Rodriguez, Chris Ruggiero, William I, Ethan, Morgan Kelly, Nick C, Joseph Esposito, Edward Schaaf, JC, Renato Parente, Nick Lewis, Michael Caden, Bobby Matalone, Stevie Brown, Griffin Moore, Logan Downing, Nicholas Shepard, Kaf, Sakran Anaparetti, Bud Power, John Artolini, Roberto Corchado, Angela Damas, McBain. Thank you. And I was going to come on here and respond to the John Boy Morning episode about how, you can't just do one show while I was doing football today, breakdowns, other things besides just the Talking Giants podcast, but the supplemental content that was sold. And I was going to talk about how, they charge us with all this overhead, and that's why they can technically say we don't make money, when in reality, you look at the ads. But damn it, you know what? If you couldn't make money on these people, this audience that surely damn gives a shit, then I don't know what you're doing. I am so thankful, man. You guys made my mom cry when I told her how this is going. I was worried about, money. Like, obviously, still got to do things. But all I know, and get to whatever salary I was at. But I just know that I am blessed because of this audience, and I'm very thankful. I just spent 25 minutes doing that. So maybe that's the worst podcasting ever, and you never want to listen to again. But I am so freaking thankful for you guys. It's unbelievable, man. Like, I've been thankful, and just reading all those names really just kind of struck another chord with me. And there's not including some people who have been patrons for a longer time who, it's going to take a little, like a month to, change what their pledges are in the system. Here's Nick Falato. All right, we now welcome on Nick Falato of the Big Blue Banter podcast. Does a lot of writing for a lot of platforms. Nick, we've been doing this since 2020. Before we fully dive into the draft on my show. I got to get used to saying my show instead of our show with Talking Giants being gone. But we do the mid round prospects, right? I just say, give me 5, 6 guys you want to talk about who aren't top of the first round on the front of people's minds, and let's talk about them. So excited to have you on, man.
Bobby, it's always a pleasure to talk football prospects with you. We nailed those first couple years. I think we drafted what 2 or 3 guys who ended up being New York Giants. The
Yeah,
OG was Matt Peart, though.
yeah, and Amir Smith Marset was on there, so we've had a couple guys and make their way towards um the Giants. So Ellerson Smith was on there. So hitting the mid round guys. I guess Gettleman was just a lot easier to peg on the guys that he likes. But so we'll get into all of that. But we want to talk about Shedeur Sanders first because I really don't know your opinion on him. So I want to talk ball, right? We haven't done our QB draft preview. That'll be the next full-fledged episode, but people kind of know my feelings. Where are you at with Shedeur Sanders? If the Giants were to draft a quarterback at 3, he seems like the guy who would be the most likely pick there.
Yeah, Dan and I were gonna do our Shedeur episode over at Big Blue Banter soon enough. Look, I think Shedeur Sanders is you kind of hear all of the draft pundits talk about his mechanics, how clean he is in the pocket, his throwing motion, his accuracy. And I think there's a lot of validity to that. For me, it can be distilled down to something a little bit more simple when it comes to Shedeur. And it's just, I don't see anything physically like elite about this guy, or even I would say physically excellent about this guy. He is a quarterback who struggled to evade Big 12 defenders, right? I think he has to play within the framework of that pocket. That's where he's going to win. And people try to say, well, that's Joe Burrow's path. I think Joe Burrow is a better athlete than Shedeur Sanders is. And I think Joe Burrow also handles the accuracy and has a little bit more arm strength and handles all the things that we applaud Shedeur for at a much higher level. And even back when he came out of LSU, I felt that way. When I look at Shedeur, I don't know exactly what his ceiling is. I don't think that ceiling is very high. He might have a slightly high floor to him, but when I want the New York Giants to select a quarterback, I want this guy to have a certain ceiling and a certain potentiality that I don't really see necessarily with Shedeur Sanders, especially if we're talking about him in the top 5. If we're talking about Shedeur Sanders, say if the Giants were to trade back into the first round, or if the Giants had like the 25th pick like they did a couple of years ago, fine. I can understand that. I could talk myself into it. But when the opportunity cost of selecting Shedeur Sanders is Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, I'm out on that. And I am not necessarily interested in having him be the quarterback for the New York Giants. But that's not to say, Bobby, that he is a bad prospect or he can't be somewhat successful. I just think he needs to be in the perfect type of environment to allow him to flourish. And he doesn't have those elite traits that can maybe put a team on his back and be like, we are going to win because of you. And I'm not saying you're going to win in spite of Shedeur Sanders, but I just want that elite nature of my quarterback, which we see all throughout the league. And I look at him and I don't necessarily see that. Like I look at him and I say, what is this player's ceiling? And I'm like, names like Andy Dalton come to mind, right? And maybe slightly more than that. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but we remember Andy Dalton had a pretty damn good career early on. So that's kind of where I'm at with Shedeur Sanders. What are your thoughts?
I'm in a similar place, right? Like, everyone talks about quarterbacks and taking swings and taking chances, but in reality, I guess everyone has a different philosophy. Mine is, do I believe that quarterback is going to be a top 10 quarterback, capable of being a top 10 quarterback? And even if I have doubts, are there things that make you want to bet on working on it with Shedeur? So people talk about the arm talent and lack of athleticism, right? I think he's got NFL arm talent. Again, not great arm talent, not top quarterback in the NFL arm talent, but he has NFL arm talent. You mentioned Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton has NFL arm talent. He's a longtime NFL quarterback. He's really accurate, right? I like the accuracy. He's going to be accurate. Those types of quarterbacks who are accurate, run quick game, and have an NFL arm, Nick, they last in the NFL, right? They last. But what do they last as? A lot of times they last as bottom half quarterbacks or top tier backups. And but if he had the elite processing and anticipation that people talked about, I would say, hey, I don't care if he doesn't, I don't need him to have the best arm. If he has that type of anticipation, that ability to process post snap, then we're there. But unfortunately, that's where I think my biggest worry comes from with Shedeur is that paired with the lack of elite intangibles of arm or not intangibles, lack of elite arm strength and athleticism, is I see a guy who, when he gets different rotation disguises thrown or coverage disguises thrown at him, gets confused and doesn't know where to go and takes sacks and throws interceptions at time. I see a guy who doesn't operate the middle of the field so much the way that Joe Burrow did coming out of college, who has been the comparison. I don't see the anticipation, right? You look at, quarterbacks who throw between 10 and 20 yards out of the last like 5 drafts. I think he was like the second lowest, only to Bo Nix. Um, and we know, a lot of the short game and stuff. So the offensive line wasn't good, but I thought he made it worse at times, right? People will look at the Nebraska game. The Nebraska game is not my worry with Shedeur, right? The offensive line was totally overwhelmed. He obviously made it worse a couple times with that pick six in the end zone, but that was a game where I thought the offensive plan and the offensive line did really bad. It's all the other games where I just don't see this anticipation, right? That BYU game that everyone watched, the bowl game, the interception on that whole shot, and like, oh man, the receiver coughed it up. Man, he should have thrown that ball, bang, 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 and he just holds on to it, pulls it, and he gets his wide receiver lit up. So it's his fault that it's a bad play. It's bad luck that the ball popped into another defender's hands on that play. But I just don't see it. And I did a 45, 50-minute breakdown on him, and that's where I hammered is I don't see this, which is not a disqualifier for me to take you in the top 10 of the NFL draft as a quarterback. But when you're pairing that with the lack of great arm talent and lack of great athleticism, well, then what am I really swinging on? And like you said, I think you're swinging on this guy being a top 12 consistent quarterback in the NFL, and that's your realistic ceiling. Obviously, like you said, ceiling is a I kind of hate the word ceiling because it can mean anything, but the realistic ceiling, I think, is a guy who is consistently a top 12, a Kirk Cousins type quarterback in the NFL, which is not a bad
And
thing, but
that's
I don't know if I'm swinging on that at pick 3.
especially with the opportunity cost factored in. Like if there was no Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter that would be available, say if Cam Ward is off the board, then maybe you can talk yourself into that. But would you rather have that blue chip edge prospect who can be a foundational piece of your franchise for the next 15 years, or Travis Hunter, who is, a unicorn at this point, not to overuse that, but a dude who plays as much offense and defense, and you can kind of pick and choose where you want to put him and then leverage his skill sets. If you want him to be a defensive player, put him in offensive packages, whatever. The Giants could really have a lot of success with that. So I'm in that same boat. I don't think I would throw a fit or anything. Like, I get it. I don't think Shedeur is a bad prospect. I think a lot of people conflate Giant fans saying I'm skeptical of selecting Shedeur Sanders at 3 with you hate Shedeur Sanders. I don't. I think he can be. I think he is a first round quarterback, but I'm right there with you with the ceiling argument. And I know ceiling, like you said, a bit overused. I just don't really see a path where this guy is a top 10 quarterback consistently in the National Football League in today's NFL. And I really am concerned about the lack of athletic ability that he does possess and how he tried to leverage his athletic ability in college and it never worked for him. And now you're doing that against Micah Parsons and you're doing that against the Eagles defense. That's scary. That's a scary proposition. So he really needs to find a way to play and hone in on the skills that he does possess to have success. And then those skills need to raise to a level that we haven't necessarily seen yet either. So it's just a lower, I think there's lower amounts of upside with a selection like that in the top 5. And
Right.
I don't know if the Giants will go in that direction.
And listen, like if your argument, like I'll listen to an argument like I'd like him better than Cam Ward. that's fine. But to me, that's not a reason to draft him. That's a reason why you wouldn't draft Cam Ward to me, right? Like Cam Ward, I would take Cam Ward first overall if I was the Tennessee Titans. But you also see, I'm sure you did some Jameis film. You see similarities at times where it's like, man, you really trust that a corner is gonna take off with that post receiver, right? Like you're throwing the ball into DB's hands a little too often, and you're able to make up for it in college with 350 yards and 4 touchdowns. You're not going to be able to do that consistently in the NFL. You got to figure out like the balance in between there.
Yeah.
But I'm taking advantage of the talent. I think he runs, the middle of the field and some of those, down to down quarterback things better than Shedeur with having, some more of the wow plays. So, um, it's just again, we're desperate. And I am too, man. Like listen, I want a quarterback, right? I'm so tired of not having a franchise quarterback. Our lives would be easier as Giants fans. And especially as content creators, Falato would just be nice, right? You
Be
know,
amazing.
and we're recording this before this announced, but like I'm starting my own business. Guess what the best thing would be for my business this year? A fucking quarterback at pick number 3. Because guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to spend the entire summer breaking down that quarterback. But the reality is with Shedeur, I don't see it there. Like you said, if they pick him at 3, you know, F it, we ball. Like, let's see what we can get out of him. Let's talk about him this summer. Let's watch training camp and let's see how the first year goes. Um, and let's see how it goes. Gonna, try and get behind him and hope he proves me wrong. But unfortunately, my desperation has not led to take Shedeur at 3 desperation.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And I still need to watch some Jalen Milroe and some of these other quarterbacks to see what the actual gap is between Shedeur Sanders and those quarterbacks. I'm gonna cram that all into this next like 2 or 3 weeks. I'm just finishing up Jackson Dart here soon, and I've been watching just a bunch of film, but uh, I am interested to see my opinions in next couple of weeks on Milroe and some of the other guys, Tyler Shuck, to see that gap. I don't know
Yeah.
if you've done work on that, but that's I'm curious to see what I'll think.
I spent a ton of time getting Cam and Shedeur breakdowns done, so now I've moved on to the other quarterbacks for our episode next week. So, Milroe's I'm pretty anti taking a quarterback on day 2 and day 3, with exceptions, because again, it just never works out, right? I've laid it out. It doesn't work out. The ones where it has worked out is Brock Purdy and recent history, and then Jalen Hurts, which is like, hey, take a chance on the guy with the elite talent and see if you can build up. And I think Milroe falls into that category.
And both those quarterbacks have something inside of them, and they both inherited excellent foundations. Like those organizations, like the
Yeah,
Eagles, were ready for to win right there, and then obviously San Francisco with Shanahan. So
right.
it's but I don't know. We'll see.
Let's get into the mid-round prospects, right? The guys that were, be taken. Do we take this quarterback over these guys? Who do you want to kick off with?
I think we should start with probably the best of the bunch, and that is Derrick Harmon of
Bam.
Oregon, man. 6'5", 310 pounds, probably even a little bit more than that. Kind of a heftier look to him. Like when you look at his torso and his chest, it just looks like a cinder block, like a gigantic cinder block plopped on top of 2 legs with these thick hips. And Bobby, anybody who listens to Big Blue Banter will know this. Dan and I have been just pounding the table for years, and I'm sure you have too. We need another defensive lineman. Since Leonard Williams walked, it's like we need another defensive lineman. We can't enter the season with Raheem Nunez-Roches being the second defensive lineman. The Giants did. The Giants had the ball, ran down their throats last year. Dexter Lawrence needs somebody else. And I look at that pick 34, and you look at this draft class specifically, and there are a lot of players, but specifically with 34, Harmon and a guy like Kenneth Grant, I don't know if Grant will be there by that point. Those guys would slide in and be the perfect complement to Dexter Lawrence to strengthen these trenches. But when it comes to Harmon specifically, talking about someone with excellent upper body strength, someone with an elite motor, somebody who I would say understands how to use his hands and has somewhat of a pass rushing repertoire where they can employ and know how to use counters effectively. I think he was at Michigan State before he went to Oregon. He was at Michigan State for 3 years, and they were solid years. And then this last year at Oregon, he really just broke out. And I look at this guy with this size, hands, length, all that stuff. You can line him 2, 3. You can put him really anywhere. If you need to put him even as a 5 sometimes or a 4 eye shade, he's right there. Massive, massive human being who can also defend the run. So I think when you're discussing what the Giants need right now, You can probably come up with a lot. Obviously, we talked about the quarterback position, but I don't really know if there's something more dire than finding an upgrade over defensive line too. I like the Giants added Ledbetter. I like that the Giants went out and added Roy Robertson Harris. That's not enough, though. That's not even close to enough. We need another young buck on this defensive line. I think that could really solidify all the critical vulnerabilities that Shane Bone dealt with last year and allow the secondary pieces to also thrive. I think Harmon would be that perfect player to slide in there and complement Dex.
So one question I need to ask you before I talk about him. Who do you like better, Jeremiah Ledbetter or Roy Robertson Harris?
I think geez. We go back like two. That was very Morty of me right there. Oh geez. I don't know if you like watch Rick and Morty, but um I'm probably gonna go with Roy Robertson Harris, but I'm banking on I'm trying to eliminate 2024 from my mind and go back
Okay.
just 2 years, right? If I can eliminate those two stints that he had in 2024 and go back to I think it's time in Jacksonville in 2023, I think I could be talked into it, but I'm ideally don't want to see any of it. I don't really want to see any defensive lineman play on the Giants that's not named Dexter Lawrence.
So I guess I got to go watch 2023 Roy Robertson film because I like Ledbetter better, but I only watched 2024. Um, so like you mentioned, I mean, you hit a lot of my notes. I do it all defensive tackle who, you can move around the front. And just in the run game, again, like you see the upper body strength, right? But he's not the most physically imposing guy in the world, but he just as a run defender does it all really well. Like he's able to two gap, like he takes on double teams extremely well. Even if he gives up a little bit of ground initially, he just figures out a way to counter well, gain leverage, split some of those double teams. Um, like you just see as a guy, and again, who's able to shed in the run game. My biggest worry in the run game is finishing plays, right? Like against Boise State, there were so many times where it's like fantastic play, finish the tackle on Ashton Genty, which I understand is a little harder said than done. And then as a pass rusher, he wins off of the first step, has that lateral quickness. You could use him in the stunt game. Again, I don't think he's ever going to be this top tier pass rusher, but I think he's going to be a guy who gives you consistent pass rush production. And then especially against next to a guy like Dexter Lawrence.
100%. So the thing about the missed tackles, I hear that and I get that. That's his big knock because he had a 26.7% missed tackle rate. I know you watch the tape as well, and some of those missed tackles, you're like, need you to get that. But there are a lot of them where I'm like, I'm just impressed you even put yourself into a position where you could possibly make that tackle. Like the fact that you altered the running back's path through a double team and found a way to get low and split that double team, present your numbers to the running back to make the running back bounce, and you didn't finish the play. Ideally, I'd love for you to finish the play, but the fact that you were even in that position is what's crazy to me. And I felt I had more takeaways like that with Harmon than, oh man, you're just terrible and you just suck and you can't like actually bring guys down to the deck.
Sorry, my mic was muted. Yeah, and like you said, like a lot of them were against Ashton Genty too, where like this is a great rep, just finish the play. But like you said, like it's most defensive tackles aren't in that position to make that play. But like you said, it's just like able to like present your numbers. He's just able to stay square, like through any type of contact that he gets. Whether it's a tackle trying to throw his hip through him in a hammer block, whether it's a true duo double team to the linebacker, he's just able to stay square. He uses that knee drop technique and just win leverage. He just has like a natural understanding for it. Um, Again, like I don't ceiling whatever, but like you said, pick 34, man, and I'm just like I don't know if I don't know who else is going to be there that I'm going to want more than that. I actually took him in the midseason mock draft that I do every year and during the bye week in that with that second round pick. So I can see myself wanting them there. And again, I think what he does fits so well with Dexter Lawrence, and Dexter Lawrence is going to create one on ones, and that's where he wins. You get two sets of hands on him as a pass protection. It eliminates him, but with Dexter Lawrence, like he's not going to be put in those situations that often.
Another defensive tackle just for later on in the draft. And I know you had eyes on him at the Senior Bowl, but Darius Alexander from Toledo. That's
Yes.
another player where if we're talking, I, I think day three might be a little bit of a stretch, but maybe with one of the third round picks, you look at a guy like that and it's like, if the Giants go in another direction at 34, because there's going to be a lot of good players available at 34, then maybe you opt to go with a guy like Alexander a little bit later on.
Yeah, I just pulled up his notes. They're above Harmon's, and I agree. I have him as a early third round pick. Um, another gifted guy who, you want to see a little more consistent. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Keanu Benton a couple years ago
Mm,
out of Wisconsin.
yeah.
But let me throw you this scenario at you. I'm a big fan of the double dip draft strategy, right?
Mm,
It's Fans hate it when it happens to their team, and then we look back and you're like, you know what the Packers did? They got Tucker Kraft after Luke Musgrave, or the Ravens got Mark Andrews after drafting Hayden Hurst, and maybe it's only with the tight end position where it stands out the most. I would love, and this is a position where you don't start one guy. I would be so excited if they got a defensive tackle in both the second and third round. Right, like you said, it's really thin. Right, we just had a debate of who you like more, Jeremiah Ledbetter or Roy Robertson Harris to go next to Dex. I would love to add, like you said, a Derrick Harmon in the second, Darius Alexander in the third, or you get Omar Norman Lott with the comp pick or the early fourth round pick. Like those types, because like you said, there's so many of them. Well, let's double up on the strength of this draft, which is defensive tackle, and just happens to be a huge need on the Giants as well.
It's been a huge need since Joe Shane came in. And he actually put a lot of investment in it, but it didn't really make a dent when he went out and he added Ashawn Robinson, he added Raheem Nunez Roches. But then you trade Leonard midway through that season. The linebackers took a step back this year in this new defense that puts a ton on their plate with these two high looks. You need to be strong in the trenches. And look, I like the fact that the New York Giants have so much faith in Andre Patterson that they're like, we don't really need to give him too many investments. He'll figure it out with a seventh round pick, Jordan Riley. He'll figure it out with a fifth round pick, DJ Davidson. But those guys just should not be playing football consistently right now. They're not ready to do that. And we saw it last year, Bobby. 97 off the field. What did every offense do? Every offensive coordinator had the same thought. 97's off the field, run the football, run the football. And then when he ended up getting hurt, Shane Bowen was like, I can't run my defense. I got to put like 5 guys on the line of scrimmage and put 8 guys in the box and
That
just
Saints
force
game was funny.
the Saints game was wild. Everyone thought Alvin Kamara, myself included, was like, dude, this guy's going to go off for 250. And the Giants bottled him up. But Derek Carr is slinging the ball to like Marquez Valdez Scantling, and all these freaking receivers who are over the hill are just way too young. And these corners are put on these islands all the time. And Deontay Banks is struggling because there's too much on his. But you need to have a complementary defense where there's no liability. So you don't have to do that. So Shane Bowen can do what he needs to do to run the damn team. And I think in order to do that, you need to find another defensive tackle. And any of these guys we talked about fit that bill.
Yeah, that Saints game was one of the funniest things because the Saints walked into like, oh, Dexter Lawrence is gone. We're just going to run at will. And the Giants are like, the one thing we're going to do this week is stop the run no matter what. Run all those run blitzes, corner blitzes off the
Well done.
edge. That and to the credit, those defensive tackles kind of played fairly well in that game.
Dude,
But like you said,
Elijah Garcia, like coming out and like making some plays. But yo, I see you, bro. Like, what the hell's going on here?
I know, like we're gonna remember Elijah Garcia's name for the rest of our lives because of that game. Um, so, yeah. So, anything else on him before we get to the next guy?
No, I think we could transition to somebody else who's also in the trenches, and that's Landon Jackson. Now, the Giants went out and they signed Chauncey Golston from the Cowboys. Like that signing. I think it's a good value, and I think he'll be a solid rotational piece in this. And he's on the up and up in this defense. But if the Giants want to get another just strong edge in the middle rounds, probably a little bit more towards day 2 than day 3, a guy like Landon Jackson, who is 6'6", 270 pounds, who sets a firm edge, has just a muscular like physique all throughout, and he understands how to use his insane length. Now I'm trying to pull up his arm length, right? Okay, his arm length is 33 and 1/4, but to me, he looks a lot bigger than that out there. Ran a 4.68, 165, 10 yards, but not the most explosive guy out there. But I like players who can push the pocket from the edge, but mostly they're just gonna not allow you to run around their edge. When you ask him to set an edge, he's going to be able to put his feet in the ground, anchored down, locate, and then come off his block, disengage with hand strength, with awareness as well. So when I look at a dude like Landon Jackson, I don't think he jumps out as like, hey, this is like exciting. He's not going to bend the edge. He's very opposite than someone like Brian Burns. But if you just need another rotational player to stick on there, to stick out there, I look at Jackson, and I think that's the type of guy I would like to bring into the room, mostly because I like these bigger dudes. Like I look at Shane Bowen and what he did in Tennessee with Danico Autry. That's like a 6'5", 6'6", 275, 280 pound edge. And if you got a guy, he doesn't have to be the most explosive, but if he could still threaten and then also work his power moves and make tackles be a little bit weary in these one-on-one situations while being that just absolute firm defender against the run, then you can play those two high defenses. That's what I'm sort of looking for with this defensive structure and some of the personnel the Giants already have there. I think a player like this, even though it's similar to Golston, would work in what Shane Bowen wants to do, even though people like to label him, oh, he's at like 4-3 end. That doesn't like really matter to me, even though there's a lot of four down fronts with Shane Bowen. But overall, I like his strength, his size, and what he can do against the run. And I think there's not a ton of upside as a pass rusher, but there's enough.
Yeah, like my first bullet point is kind of like a caption of what I think I'm a good sized edge with plus speed that shows up in the run, but missing something as pass rusher. And like you said, he's kind of straight legged, lacks bend. But he is like to me, he's a rotational player, which is where do you take a rotational edge in the draft? I don't know where you have him, but I look at the mock draft simulators and they have him at like 40 something on their big board. I don't agree with that, but he's someone who rushes with a plan, right? So again, like you said, is he going to be a great pass rusher? No, but he's someone who will take advantage of bad offensive tackle play, which you get quite a bit of in the NFL, and you can rack up 5, 6 sacks in a season if you get consistent playing time doing that. If not, then you'll get 3, 4 or whatever. But like you said, uses the cross chop, swipes. His hand usage is fairly good and violent. It's just whenever he has hands on him, he struggles. He's not able to bend the corner. But in the run game, he's a charged up, full effort all the time with that size and get off. Like he's going to find wins in the run game consistently.
Absolutely. Do you remember the Buccaneers in 2019 that drafted a guy out of Iowa named Anthony Nelson? I think he's still on the team.
He is number 98.
Landon Jackson reminds me a little bit of Anthony Nelson. I think Nelson was drafted in the third or fourth round, if I'm not mistaken. Fun fact: Anthony Nelson was in my group when I was the interning at the Senior Bowl. He was one of the guys who reported to me, and I had to like ensure that he was where he needed to be. Great dude, great guy. I look at Landon Jackson. I think he's a little bit more of a souped up, a little bit more souped up, whereas Nelson's a little bit taller, a little bit more of a souped up version of Nelson.
He's big as shit. We actually interviewed him at Landon at the Senior Bowl, and it's like he was like kind of like the biggest dude walking around the halls. And I
And
don't
he's
know
got
if he
that
has,
bald head and everything, dude.
yeah, I
He
don't know
looks
if it's alopecia or whatever, but his head is completely bald. It's like this is the guy that you walk to the other side of the street of at night if if you see him. So again, I think he's an efficient mover working outside in. Like you said, sets a good edge, can shed. Not this ass kicker in the run game, but just consistent. And without knowing Anthony Nelson fully, like I feel like that's a fairly good comparison to find with him. It's just where do you take him? Like when you're talking about like because I don't know if this is a deep edge class, but you have like a lot of guys in that middle day 2 to day early day 3 tier, like the Kyle Kennards and the Prince Uman Mielen, and it's kind of like a what's your flavor like of what like type of style of player are you looking for?
and I would entertain any of these styles with the Giants, man. I'm just looking to get multiple. And a guy like Jackson, even though it is somewhat similar to Golston, I still think that could be entertained. And then you have guys, and I know this dude will go earlier, Donovan Ezeraku, who is a little bit more of a skill set similar to Brian Burns, completely different types of players. And I think in this defense specifically, having both types is very important depending on what Shane Bowen is doing. I think Shane Bowen also likes to mix and match and try to gain advantages from a mismatch type of standpoint. When you have those slower tackles, put an Ezraku in there. When you have guys who are just maulers against the run game, put another edge who is a little bit more stronger, has a little bit more of an anchor. I want to see Kayvon establish that anchor and be a little bit more consistent with it this year as well. Hopefully that can happen, which we've been saying for quite a while at this point.
Yeah, you're 4K one. Um, yeah. So what was I gonna get? Oh, I wanted to ask you because you reminded me of Edge. Who do you prefer at 3 if they're both available? Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter?
Love them both, but I think I'm going Hunter. That's where I've been for quite a while now. I could be talked into Carter, but I think there's something very special about Travis Hunter, not just the whole playing both way. I think he could be successful wherever the Giants decide to play him. And I think if it is defense, you can have those offensive packages where he can go in and run routes. And I think he's smart enough from everything I've heard to be able to learn the playbook and what he needs within those packages. He has a leadership quality to him. It seems like a lot of people just rave about his personality and everything. So I think that's where I would go.
Yeah, I mean his corner film. I haven't actually even watched his wide receiver film. I guess I have from watching Shedeur. I'm like, I think you might be my favorite receiver in the class, but his corner film certainly displays a high IQ of the game. I think of that interception against UCF in the flats where he just lets that I think they ran like a post wheel, and he lets the wheel go, kind of knowing that KJ Jefferson's going to get to the check down and then intercepts it. And then other ways, the way he cheats his leverage and stuff, it's just fun to watch. I'm a Abdul Carter guy. Don't talk to me about the injuries. I'm not a doctor. Like obviously,
Of
if he's
course, yeah.
got huge medical red flags, but just as a player, I think Carter's just fucking like totally disrupt your defense. And the fact that the Giants have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau doesn't stop me. It makes me want it more, right?
Yeah.
I would love to have three rushers, right? Kayvon's my third rusher. I'm super happy. They're not stopping me from drafting somebody unless we had like Max Crosby and Miles Garrett on both edges. There's like not much stopping me from drafting an edge high.
And stylistically too, just because we were talking about Landon Jackson and his style, when it comes to somebody like Abdul Carter, those high side, like he's an amazing player, obviously a blue chip guy, but those high side rushes with Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence pushing the pocket from the interior. And if this is like a 3rd and 6 plus, you can have Kayvon as that fourth rusher, 4-man rush, drop 7. You have two guys who could scream around the edge, and then you have two guys who can push that. Like I want to see that, and that's just 4-man pass rush. We're not even getting into pirate stunts, which are 4-man. The what you could do from a blitzing. You know how Shane Bowen is going to bring the nickel sometimes. There's so much creativity that you could do, but you don't need to do it because you have arguably one of the best pass rushes in the league if you get Abdul Carter.
Yeah. All right. Who do we want to hit next?
All right, so we can go and stay on. Do we have another defensive player?
We
We have
don't. We don't. We can stay in
all
the
right.
trenches if you want.
Let's stay in the trenches, and I'm going to try to say this. Jonah Savaiinaea, I think that's how you might say it. The
That's the way
off
I would say it. Maybe Savaiinaea. I don't know.
something like that. I've heard people pronounce it before, but we're going to go. He is the offensive lineman. He has played tackle. He has played guard for the University of Arizona, has over 10-inch hands, just under 34-inch arms. A lot of people are suggesting that he might not be able to play tackle. He had over 2,000 snaps, over 1,000 of them were at right tackle, almost 1,000 of them were at right guard, about 400 of them were at left tackle. So, and those all were all in 2024. So he's most recently played left tackle. Not going to play left tackle in the NFL. Can he play right tackle? Possibly, but he's a little bit slow footed. So his best landing spot could be at guard
I
if
think
he
he's even said like I'm probably going to move to guard at the next level.
yeah. So this is somebody who is fully aware that they're probably going to be kicked inside. And when you look at him, he's just a house, bro. He's just massive, 324 pounds, about 6'4", and he can generate a lot of force through the ground into his target in the run game. I think he's somebody who kicks out for his size a little bit better than one would expect when I'm talking about kicking out into space. Can his pad level rise sometimes? Sure, but I think most of the time for a guy of his size, he does kind of stay low, smooth feet. When a lot of the film I watched was as left tackle, he can get into that vertical set. He can get into that 45-degree set very quickly. Now he's not going to necessarily have to do that on an island as often because I think again he's going to be kicked inside. But when I think about this player and I think about how teams around the NFL and the Giants run a lot of duo, his ability to come hip to hip with his offensive lineman, push, get his eyes, and then climb to that linebacker. He can generate enough force to do that. And he has enough movement skills, enough balance to locate that linebacker. And he's just freaking wide. So he can just get in the player's way. And he's also a smart guy. Doesn't really get fooled much on those twists, on those stunts, looks for work, baller type of mentality when he hits you. So I like offensive linemen who have versatility. The Giants recently, I don't want to like chastise anybody, but they've been burned by that general idea, right? They drafted guys who are versatile and they get on the field and they're not all that great. But when I do look at, I'm going to try to say it again, Savaiinaea, I think this is somebody who, yes, he's versatile, but you can just put him at guard and he's going to be successful as a run blocker and have a good enough anchor and adapts well enough to counters to be, I would say, a high floor player initially who can be someone you always rely on if development ensues in the manner that I think could with this type of player. if that makes sense.
No, it does. Like as a pass protector, like I'm confident in him at guard, and guard has become one of the I feel like some of the harder positions to project to the NFL, and sometimes they end up being good, but their first 2 years struggle a lot. So it's a question of like how, like Kenyon Green and Zion Johnson, right? Those are two guys that I love both of them, and both are struggling, right? Kenyon Green is going to get fixed by the Eagles, and it's going to drive me crazy. Um, but it's just one of those positions. But with him, I feel like the guys who have had quicker success are the guys who move outside in into the NFL, and that's what Jonah is, right? Like he's going to play guard, like you mentioned. He's extremely stout, and he's a controlled player, like in space. As a puller, moving to the second level does well. Like you said, in those pass sets, like not going to have be doing vertical sets at guard, but like he's got the feet to move with interior guys where the edge rushers in the NFL he probably doesn't, but like it's just controlled and smooth at all times. And in the run game you see a lot of good, right? Like some ass kicking stuff. The thing with him that is just I feel like I need him to finish better. I feel like he kind of has a cookie cutter approach to the run game. So when you're working duo, like you said, it's really good. I just think when D linemen try to work off of him, or it's wide zone and you don't know whether to pin out or try and continue to try and reach, I just feel like he just doesn't rework his hands or torque as much as he should because, like you said, he's strong as shit. He's got good hand grip. He should be able to do those things. Just
Yeah.
kind of getting a better understanding of that early on in his career, I feel like would do. I think that would like talk about ceiling. I think that would make him like a high level guard in the NFL.
Yeah, and that's a high level guard just through technique and strength. Because again, he's not the most explosive or the quickest, but I don't think that's also like a liability that he'll deal with. It's just that's not necessarily an asset either. I'm big on just investing in the trenches, and I know you are as well. If the Giants were to go in this direction, I don't even know if he would be guaranteed to be the starter, but that
Which
would
is
be
good. That's a good
yes,
thing.
exactly. That would be the hope, though, right? So the Giants right now, man, try to find more offensive line help. Try to find more. That's kind of where I'm at. It's like that's where I was at back in 2019 when I started like podcasting and covering the Giants professionally, right? And then you had Dave Gettleman come in and talk about hog mollies, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of cheesy and that's kind of corny, but I like the idea of it. And they've made investments, and none of these investments have worked out. And I always try to find out the reason why. Is this like an organizational rot that the Giants are in right now, where the coaches cannot develop the talent that's being brought in? Like, is it like, what is it? Is there not like is it a lack of development from the coaches port, or is the general managers like dropping the ball on the guys that they're selecting? Like, why I have so many players that have gone through the Giants building have not taken the necessary development to maximize their talents that were pretty, I would say, obvious on tape when we watched it. Specifically, I'm referring to guys like Evan Neal and then obviously Joshua Zudu, because those guys were a little bit higher picks. I'm not going to really group in McKethan with this or McKeithen with this, but yeah, man, I hope that a player like Jonah wouldn't fall into that the Giants, Carmen Brasillo, and the infrastructure that they have in place now will be able to allow these guys to flourish.
Yeah, and again, I've kind of bought in on like the move, get the guys who are going to move inside, not because they look terrible at tackle, and like, oh well, you'll just be fine at guard, but the guys who look good at tackle, but you see they have their moments, right? Like Marcus Bowe out of Purdue, another guy who's very different than Jonah, but again, a guy who's like, you look good at tackle, but you have your moments that make me think you probably be better off kicking inside. And with Jonah, different player, but like similar mindset when it comes to that. So I would love Derrick Harmon at pick 34. With that third round pick, I would love to get Jonah 70. Whether either one, I think I'd be very happy with bringing him in as that pick.
Yeah, Hunter or Carter at 3, and then Harmon at 34, and then Jonah at, was it 65 or whatever it is? Like, that's a solid 1, 2, 3, and you're getting strong in the trenches, and you're also getting an insanely talented player in Hunter if the Giants did go in that direction. So I would support that as well.
Yeah, we need to make up for a couple of years and just get like this entire mid season or mid round preview just drafted by the Giants. Who we got two guys left. Who do we want to go? We want to go with the back or the receiver?
Let's go with the receiver first. So that's Pat Bryant from the University of Illinois, the Fighting Illini. I watched this kid's game tape against Rutgers. Guy was everywhere, caught 7 for 197 and one. Look, he ran a 4.6 at the combine, which I'm like low key a little excited about. Not because I want the guy to fall down the draft boards, but he's going to be available late, more than likely on day three. And when you watch this player, he is a crafty route runner who understands how to attack leverage off the line of scrimmage. And that can be off, that can be press, understands how to win on the line of scrimmage. I think he can use his hands a little bit better against press coverage. But overall, I like how smart he is as a player. Is he the most explosive? No. Is he the most twitchy? He's not. Is he somebody who can create separation at the next level? I think that remains to be seen at a consistent basis, but I believe in the savvy nature of his routes coupled with his athletic ability to find ways to get open. And when you watch his tape, dude, the guy owns the catch point. You throw a ball to Pat Bryant's going to find a way to run underneath this pass and make the damn reception. And I love guys like that. So I think massive catch radius, high football IQ, creative route runner, understands how to run double moves, very deceptive when he does it. And for a guy of his size, he's fluid. He's balanced. He's just not the most twitchy or explosive type of receiver, but there's room for players like this to come in. And again, another reason why I love guys like this, and this could be just a sucker, this could be the old coach in me, I don't know. Block ass off, dude. Gonna block all day. And I do love that. The Giants did sign some receivers like that already with little Jordan Humphrey, but I think a guy like Pat Bryant, much higher upside.
I might have a note. Good blocker. My way to describe him is as a savvy wide receiver. Right. My first bullet point is savvy wide receiver with size and effort to carve an NFL career. Um, does I do think he like the speed is an issue, like to separate just naturally. Even though again, like you said, he's quick, right? He's not he's not all twitched up, but he's quick. He's he works smooth, quick transitions, and has effective releases. He uses a bunch of different ones, and Steve Smith talked about this. I don't know when. I think if Vinny Testaverde got signed with the Panthers, and the thing told him, he was like, if it's an inbreaker, finish on the inside. If it's an outbreaker, finish on the outside. Do what you got to do, and that's Pat Bryant, right? He understands what route he's running. He knows where he needs to be, and that's a quarterback's, a big thing for a quarterback, especially when you're not a number one wide receiver uh, or someone that the offense is going to be planning for is, are you going to be in the right place when the right time? Can I trust you? Can I get to the backside of progression and trust that you're going to be in the right place? It's a reason why Jalen Hyatt can't get on the playing field. It's not just, oh, he can't run this route. It's like, no, you don't know where he's going to be, and he's not good enough to put on the front side or put in the number one in progression consistently. So yeah, he has great hands, fights to get the ball, makes those tough grabs on the sideline. He's going to be a guy who draws a lot of penalties too because of his ability to kind of fight back to the ball on misplaced throws. So savvy wide receiver. We talked pre-show. I don't like to compare every player to a Giants player, but it's just the guys who run our head. A little bit of reminding of Isaiah Hodgins, where going to carve out a career, can have some moments, never going to be your number one guy, but like he's someone that you can trust. And I think where he's better than Hodgins though is those ability to make those plays down the field. Where Hodgins, despite his size, never really made those contested or tough grabs. Pat Bryant really does do that, and that's something that can elevate him to having a better career than a guy like Hodgins.
I agree. And I know the Giants won't use 10 personnel a ton, but there is this weird thought in my mind where the Giants can add somebody like a Pat Bryant late in the draft and say that this Pat Bryant type character makes the team. And you roll out a 3-by-1 set in 10 personnel. You have Pat Bryant as that backside X. And then you have on the front side Malik Neighbors. You got Darius Slayton. You got Wandale. You got, if the Giants do go with a Hunter, you could put him there. If you want to make it 11 personnel, you can have Theo. But you have just firepower on this side of the field, which is going to dictate so much coverage and ensure those one-on-one matchups on the other side of the field. And I kind of want one of those, like, I'm a jump ball guy for that other side of the field. Because if you put Malik over there, Malik's going to dictate coverage. But if you have Malik on the other side, on the front side of the play, that coverage, they're going to be like, okay, yeah, one-on-one, I don't really, it's Pat Bryant, who cares? But a guy like Pat Bryant who could win jump balls with Russell Wilson throwing the ball, there's a part of me is like, when the Giants want to employ that package, it's a package I want to see because I think it could be so interesting because it's not going to be the first read, but Russ will look the defense and that defense adjusts heavily towards the front side, which they more than likely will. He'll pull the trigger and allow a guy like Pat Bryant to go up, climb the ladder, and high point. And that's something Pat Bryant did very well when he was in college.
Yeah, and a guy for his size, like he has that inside out flex, right? Which is big for Brian Dable, who likes to run different concepts out of different formations and move guys around. Like he's someone that you can, put in the slot. Not going to be running juke routes all day, but like he's someone that you can line up there and despite his size, make a play or two. So, all right, let's and you mentioned like like year one, like we can also draft a guy and when Slayton moves on in 2 years and is second in Giants all-time receiving, like he can maybe fill that role in, right? Guys don't need to play right away. All right, let's finish off with a
Darius
hometown
Slayton.
kid.
Darius Slayton's gonna break every Giants record.
I can't wait for it. I can't wait for it, honestly.
I feel like people are gonna be like low key mad about it. It's like, dude, man,
Oh,
Slay,
if he passes Odell in yards, people will be mad about it.
good for Slay, man.
Yeah. All right, let's finish off with the Rutgers kid.
Oh, dude, man, I love Kyle Monangai. I love a guy like this, dude. Somebody who's just such a physical runner. You just give him the football. He's not doesn't have the breakaway speed, maybe, but if you need that just like 3 yards, 4 yards, he's going to get it. He's going to run heavy. He's going to run through arm tackles, physical contact balance, smart runner, good vision, good patience behind the line of scrimmage, knows how to press, allow his blocks to develop, and then hit the hole. And once he hits the hole, if the DB in the alley doesn't have the best angle on him, he's going to find a way, enough wiggle to create a poor tackle attempt from that DB. And he also just steals the soul of people when he is running the football and in pass protection. Again, another one of those things where it's like if you're a running back, especially one that's going to be selected on day 3 and you want to earn snaps, understand how to pass protect and also just murder people who come into your area to protect your quarterback to set that tone. You have that little small nickel blitzing off. Like, that's my guy. Cool. I'm going to stick my shoulder in him. I'm going to absolutely uproot him. I am going to take this guy out. And I get that sense from Monangai when he's also rushing the football, wants to deliver the pain onto people. So I look at the Giants running back room with Tyrone Tracy Jr., not to do the whole cheesy thunder and lightning thing, but like that is kind of what I'm thinking about when I think of a dude like Kyle Monangai joining this. Somebody who had a 3.37 yards after contact, average 5 yards per carry. I watched a decent amount of Rutgers tape during the season, and every time I was like, dude, I love this running back. I can't wait to watch his all 22. I try not to be biased, but like I loved him dating back to before I got into the all 22. Once I watched the all 22, I'm like, I love a back like this. He's probably going to be in the league for a while. Might not be the most exciting or flashing, but I think he'll immediately be a fan favorite type of dude.
Well, and he was a fan favorite of Greg Schiano because man, they gave him some carries.
So much.
Usually, running back, MP4 files are like 18 minutes. Every one of his was like 30 plus minutes.
Yeah.
Um, like you said, like I don't think he's this guy who's setting up linebackers and making all these plays in the open field, but he's a running back who plays with good balance and strength, and he gets what is there. Like he is going to get what is available for you. He's again not the most dynamic. He's not going to be brought in as a receiving threat. You're not dreaming of him with a one-on-one with the safety in the open field, but he makes the most out of what is available within the offensive line. And there's a lot of times where the offensive line really struggled, and I think really, hurt his yards per carry because of how many times he was getting hit in the backfield. But I thought if there was one place he was able to make guys miss, it was those leaking defensive linemen in the backfield where he was able to use that quick lateral agility, those quick lateral cuts to make a guy miss and take a -1 yard run and turn it into a 3 yard run.
I know, man. I love running backs like that, dude. Running backs who are just tough. It's like old school football type of stuff where you can put him in and he's going to like, oh yeah, run through the linebacker and get the first down. So Monangai could fill that role. And again, he's another player who you get on 5th round maybe or something. And it's similar to Tyrone Tracy Jr. And that could be your running back room. And I think it would be a solid running back room with this passing attack. Monangai doesn't have too much upside as a receiver, was kind of only tasked to run a lot of like quick release routes and things like that. But that would be Tyrone Tracy Jr.'s role anyways, who was running fades and stuff for the Giants split out wide.
So I watched some of the top rated backs just to like kind of get my feet wet with the running backs this year. How would you feel about a running back on day 2? Because there's some backs where I'm like, man, I, I would love to add this talent to the Giants, despite the fact that they have all these needs.
Yeah, so both the Ohio State kids, and then are you considering Omari and Hampton? And then
Hampton was the one that kind of got me excited. Like this guy's just like a walking explosive.
I love Omari and Hampton. I don't think he'll be available, but crazier things have happened. It is the running back position. At pick 34, that would be a trade down thing, I think. Look, I like a lot of these day like 3 backs, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term, that I think the opportunity cost of selecting a running back in the second round is just a little bit too much for me, given where the Giants are and what the Giants need and how this draft shapes up and the positions that will be available. And I think the players who will likely be available at where the Giants pick at the positions of need. I don't know if I wouldn't throw a fit. I'd be like, that's interesting. The offense just got better, more explosive. If we're talking about a guy like Omarion Hampton, who I do love, I'd be excited from that standpoint. But I wouldn't want to pass on some of these defensive linemen and then maybe the Giants don't get defensive linemen later, or they get somebody who's a little bit lesser, and then that still remains like a big issue with the defense. So it really just depends on all that. But yeah, no, I really like Omarion Hampton, Travion Henderson, and Judkins are both very interesting. Cam Scadaboo is uh, fun player for sure, do it all type of running back. Again, not like the high end athletic traits, but enough of an athlete. I think he'd be a fan favorite as well. And then Genty's one of the best running backs I think I've ever seen in college football.
Yeah, it's nuts to watch him. It's when you're watching like Derrick Harmon versus Boise State. It's like, sheesh, this guy
Dude, he
can
had
move.
157 missed tackles forced, dude. I think Bijan had 101. And there's been like one or two other running backs in the entirety of Pro Football Focus calculating missed tackles forced who have broken 100. This guy had 157.
It's
That's insane.
unreal, and I love Bijan. Like I think Bijan's a top three back in the NFL right now. Um, I think only Saquon and McCaffrey have an argument of being better backs. Actually, Henry had a resurgence. I guess I had that take before that happened. But again, I love watching Bijan. All right. So before we go, one, where can people find you? And I want you to give me some homework. Give me a mid-round guy that we didn't talk about that I need to go and watch and give the listeners 2 minutes on as I end the episode.
All right, excellent. Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter. It's just at Nick Falato. That's Falato. I write for Big Blue View and Giants Country, and I host a podcast with Dan Schneier. It's called Big Blue Banter. We dive into the nitty gritty, do a lot of film stuff, X's and O's. Be getting heavy into it with the draft, so go please check that out as well. That's Big Blue Banter. Now, as for your question of guys, some little project for you. Try to think of what position for a mid-round guy. Now we already got these cornerbacks, so I'm probably not going to go in that direction. But there was a player who I know the Giants are going to draft, who I did love, and I think you would like as well, and that is Upton Stout. Have you seen Upton Stout yet?
Oh, he Western Kentucky.
Yes,
I haven't watched him, but I saw him at the Senior Bowl.
he's a lot of fun. I really liked his tape. Giants won't go in that direction because they have Drew Phillips on the roster. But if this was a previous year, I'd be like, I hope the Giants get this guy in the middle rounds, even if he's available at that. He is very undersized, I'll tell you that. But I love the mentality that he plays with, the chip that he has on his shoulder. So we'll go with Upton Stout.
All right, I'll give the listeners you're getting ready to hear 2 minutes on Upton Stout as we end the episode. Nick, appreciate you as always. I know we'll talk soon, and then we'll do the mid-round draft prospects next year. Already excited for it. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, take care of yourself. Thanks for having me, Bobby.
All right. A sincere thank you to you guys. You guys, I don't. Let me go through all the names again. I didn't watch Upton Stout. I'm sorry. Okay, I've been a little busy with some things, but I appreciate you guys so damn much. Uh, we'll see you when we see you. Until then, Giants Nation for life. Until then, let's go Big Blue.